Welcome to the Miranda podcast, where we discuss effective leadership in the healthcare industry. What have been leaders' challenges and what have they learned from, perhaps past mistakes? So today we're lucky enough to have with us Alex de Merle. So apologies, Alex, for butchering your name. Now, Alex is a vice president of Merck, German Merck, based in Singapore, in charge of Asia Pacific. And he was the former president and representative director of Merck Bio in Japan. So, welcome, Alex. How are you?
Very well. So thank you very much, Philip, for inviting me today. And good afternoon. Doing very well here in Singapore, where it's hot and humid.
Always. So, Alex, tell us a little bit about Merck, the company, and your experience, and maybe some of the therapeutic and focus.
Very good. So, I'm working for Merck, the German Merck, like we like to say, the original Merck. Why? Is because this company has been founded in 1668 back in Germany in a place called Darmstadt, which is around 40 kilometers south of Frankfurt. It's still a family-owned company, 70% within the family hands and 30% on the stock market. We are active in three different sectors. One is healthcare. The other one is what we call life science, the science behind science. And the last one is electronics, which is very much semiconductor related and B2B activities for both life science and electronics. This company has a very particular element when it comes down to healthcare in what is our purpose. Because of the composition of our portfolio, we are probably one of the only company that can claim that we thrive to create, improve, and prolong life. And why? It's because we have a therapeutical field we are active in, which is around fertility. We then have a portfolio in CM care, cardiometabolic, but also growth hormone and NNI, neurology and immunology, which is more about improving life, right? And then finally, we have a sector also active in oncology, which is more about prolonging life, right? So we are very proud of that. And we definitely really thrive to I would say change life of patient and with what we can contribute to science as well and the progress. And this is why also as one company we have a vision which is about sparking discoveries, elevating humanity, and this across the three sectors, whether it's healthcare, life science, or electronics. Now myself, I've been working with this company for 14 years. I'm in my 15 years now. I started in Geneva. Back then, we had a headquarter over there. I did different roles there. And then I moved to Taiwan, where I was general manager of the operation for the Taiwan healthcare sector, to which 2 years later, Hong Kong was added in my scope of responsibility. And then I moved to Japan. And after Japan, I moved in this role in July 2023, in 1st of July, actually. And I've been almost 2 years now in this role, which is the Senior Vice President for Asia Pacific, a region that covers from Pakistan to Australia, excluding China and Japan.
Not having a traditional background, I mean, many people that enter pharma, they're pharmacists or they've studied science, and not having a traditional background, do you think there are any particular advantages that you sort of that you had, back in the early days from sort of coming from a different place?
I think, what I could look at, right, was the process of the learning, right? So I was probably picked up because of my knowledge of the country, my knowledge not fluent, but I could defend myself in the local language. You know, I was ready to travel and to go into very basic environments. So these were giving me the advantage back then, which then being exposed in my day to day helped me to start learning, right? But learning maybe from an angle where you look at the commercial aspect and then you bring the science, right? Whereas usually someone with a science background will start with the science and then bring it to what is the commercial aspect. So it's a different approach leading probably to the same end, but I didn't any time really felt, I would say, into a disadvantage. What for me was very important was also to be able to really, I would say, tap and leverage my colleagues who were experts in the field, right? So we cannot be expert in everything, and particularly when you move into general management, right? You are not an expert in legal, you're not an expert in HR, but you really rely on your colleagues who have this expertise to really pick the information and then process it to try to make the best decision out of these different opinions that you can collect around you, right? So I think the advantage is maybe that you are, how to say that, naive of it, right? And being naive of it, you're not influenced maybe the same way, but you need at the same time to make sure that you understand the, I would say, mechanic and what are really the leverage points that need to be taken into consideration to make an optimal decision.
Right, being able to get, those experts and those great people kind of around you. So, looking at your time in Japan, you've sort of been out of Japan for a year or so, and I know you love to come back and travel. But thinking of your business time here, what surprised you, or are there any specific learnings that you gathered from being GM here?
I mean, for me, that was a fantastic experience. As I mentioned, I worked in many different countries, been now 14 years working with Merck. And with Merck, I was starting in the headquarters, but then I moved to Taiwan, Hong Kong, and after that, I was moved to Japan, right? And I think Japan is a very particular culture first, which I found extremely rich and engaging. I also felt that the sophistication of the market is outstanding, right? It's a very big and also highly scientific driven market with very clever people. Now, interestingly, also the way things works in Japan might be a bit different, but I think the most important things was when I arrived in Japan, I was constantly hearing, oh, this will not work in Japan, or Japan is different, right? But there, leveraging my own background as a social anthropologist, right?
Mm,
I was like, yeah, but at the end of the day, we're all human beings, right? And, we all have the same needs. And it's just that, it's like climbing a mountain. There is different ways or path to follow to get there, right? So trying to understand more about the culture in Japan, being very respectful of it, but at the same time, not falling in the trap to always say, look, things are different in Japan and whatever comes from outside will not work. I think it's about being smart enough to take those things, look at what can work, what needs to be adapted, and what eventually will not work, right? But that is not specific to Japan. I see that today in my role, which goes managing many countries, that goes the region I'm in charge of, goes from Pakistan to Australia, excluding China and Japan. I see the same thing. When I go to India, things are very different than if I go to Thailand or if I go to Vietnam or Korea. I think it's just being mindful of this. But again, I think the experience of being exposed to such a great culture, such a great country that I had made so much achievement, and at the same time, such a great culture was a very much enriching experience for me. Plus, the sophistication of the market, its size, and its competitivity were also really, I would say, a source for me of learnings and development.
What do you think, like, are some of the, like, having worked in many different countries and dealt with people from many different cultures, are there specific characteristics of a great leader that would be similar in Singapore or Thailand or India or Japan?
Yeah, I think, and also when I think of me being a foreigner, having working in many different countries, right? I think you need to stay who you are, right? Do not try to pretend to be, I would say, a local person, right? So I think the authenticity of who you are as a person and as a national and from your culture is fundamentally important. Second things, I think you always need to stay humble to be clear that you are a host there, that you don't know it all, and rely a lot on your team to help you to understand your environment, to understand what are the things to really look at so as to be successful. And and I think at the same time, being caring and being curious about the country you are in is also very important. And this is why every countries I've been working in, I've always made the effort to learn the language. Now, in many cases, I did not manage to become fluent, but at least by learning the language, it showed me two things. One is, showing to the people I engage with, the curiosity that I have for their culture and the respect. Second, it helps you in your day to day. And third, I think also when you learn a language, you can understand a little bit better about how the brain is wired, right? Different language have a different way to express. And the thinking process that goes behind sometimes is also reflected in the structure of the language itself, right? And I thought, this also helped me to better understand how to engage with my team in a way that would be more appealing, right? So, beside the fact that I might not be able to speak in the language, but at least having these basics also helped me to bond and to better engage with them.
And I know you've mentored a number of great leaders that are still in Merck, and some have gone on to sort of bigger and better things. When you think of those leaders that either you've reported to or that have reported to you, what are some of the special characteristics that they have, that all great leaders have, no matter what the culture?
I think for me, it's there are different elements, of course, but important one is, to have a vision, right? To have a vision, to know, where do you want to lead your organization is key, right? Second, it's being able to articulate that and engage with your team in order to be able to lead them from that point A to the point B that you want to go to. So strategic thinking, communication skills are very important. But again, I go back to the aspect of authenticity, right? I think people, or the way I look at a good leader is a person that is capable to win the heart of his followers, right? And for that, um, this person needs to be authentic, or at least appear to be really authentic, because I feel that, if you are not having the sense that what this person is speaking is really what this person is feeling, right? How do you want to believe and follow, right? So I think this authenticity is very important, and for me, it's one of the things that I really look always in my leaders is how do they engage, how do they communicate, and is the communication in line with their personality, their behavior, their role modeling, right? And if that's the case, then you can really see this is authentic, and that's something that is inspiring, right? Inspiring is another things, right? I mean, how do you inspire people, and particularly in moments where there is challenges, where re-engaging people, making sure, that they keep, a can-do attitude, that they are striving for following and staying on the vision that we have despite of the challenges faced is important. And for that, you need to be also very inspiring, right? And at the end of the day, it's also about caring, right? If you feel that your leader is interested in you, care about you, then that's also, I think, a big important plus. And finally, if you are have an appetite to develop, to grow, that you get the right feedback from your leader on what you are doing well and on what you need to work on to move to the next step that you aspire for.
Can you think of an example of, or a story, whether it be from yourself or from someone you've seen, of that authentic leadership and winning the hearts?
Right? I think, I mean, my current line manager, I found her very inspiring, right? I found her very caring. She's very authentic when she communicates with people. And we just completed a small tour together. We traveled. We went to Taiwan and Hong Kong. Then she was here in Singapore with our CEO last week. And definitely, when I see her engaging in town halls with people, or I see her speaking with interview in medias, I mean, she really transmits this authenticity, this caring element, but at the same time, she's extremely sharp. She knows what she wants us to go after and deliver, but she's also very empowering, right? And she gave us, I would say, a lot of freedom to operate and to make things while she's also making sure that we are very clear on our expectation, right? So I think for me, this is a very good leader and a leader with who I have good trust and good engagement and feel inspired and really, I would say, motivated to work with.
Okay. So, what advice would you give someone coming to a country, whether it be Japan or could be anywhere in Asia, and they haven't worked in the country before, and they're sort of like day one? Or what advice would you give someone kind of getting off the plane? What should they or shouldn't do in their first 6 months or year?
Yeah, man, that's a very good question. And I have a few examples because when I took over this region, I made quite a lot of changes on my GMs, right? And I brought quite a lot of new GMs, and some of them were from outside of this region, right? And I mean, I think the first things is, as I mentioned earlier, humility, right? I mean, you come to a place that is not yours, right? That you don't know, right? So don't come and think that you know it all and that, because it was done like this in your previous role, in the previous market, this will work here. So don't compare, right? And I personally have made several times in my career the mistakes of comparing what was my experience in the previous country to the new one, right? And I could see that doesn't resonate well. So that was one of my clear advice. It was like, okay, start fresh, observe, be humble, right? And don't jump onto conclusion, right? So take the time to land well, to bond with the team, build the trust, and also observe and understand what's going on before trying to make any change because you would probably do wrong, and particularly in Asia, where people are maybe less vocal. If they are not, feeling the trust to be there, they might not express their opinion, but that doesn't mean they don't have any opinion. And also, I think it's about building your network, right? Find allies, find people who can help you to get on board and to be adapting well to the environment, to understand the market and so on, right? So look internally, but also look externally. For example, if you're a GM, to connect, with other GMs in the country, particularly those who are either native or those who have been there for quite a while, who can really give you some good advice. And also, connect with different stakeholders, right? I mean, you have a lot of different industry that you relate with in our own role, right? And I can just say, when I got to meet you, you've been in Japan for a long time, and I definitely also learned things from you about, talents, about the market, about where, you find good talents, what are the things to be looked at, when you are in Japan. And I think these are really the advice I give to everyone is, come, land, take your time and observe and learn, right? Learn fast. And then you can start to bring your own value add, right? But don't rush for that.
Right, fantastic. Well, perhaps that's a good place to end our discussion. And thank you very much, Alex, for taking the time. Yeah, just fantastic. And, I can tell by your background, your early studies, and you're bringing that through all of your work and seeing all of the different markets. At the end of the day, people are people. But to sit back, to listen, to learn, to understand first, and then to implement any changes. So, thanks again, Alex, and we're wishing you all the best. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you very much, Philippe. And again, thank you very much for inviting me today. Thank you.
Great, thank you.